In Wallachia City in 1455, a large group of impaled skeletons appear, and then Lisa shows, and she entered a large castle, where she found Dracula, whose name is Vlad Dracula Teeps. Lisa says that she is not a witch but a doctor, and that she came to him to receive his knowledge. And it is clear from their conversation that Dracula is the one who impaled the skeletons outside. Lisa offers Dracula to get out of his castle and meet people, then they reach a large hall containing many books and research tools, and Dracula called it the real science. Lisa asks Dracula to teach her how to make medicines to help the farmers, and Dracula accepts. In the town of Tregovicti in Wallachia in 1475, Lisa appears bound and the fire is close to her. One of the bishops says that they saw her making medicines, but because of their ignorance they believe that she is doing a magic, so they are punishing her, and they said that the demon is the one who ordered to do this. Lisa says, "Don't hurt them, they are ignorant." The bishop thinks she's talking to demons, but most likely she's talking to Dracula, and in the end she gets burned. In the next scene, Dracula appears in the place where Lisa was burned, and a woman appeared, and he told her that Lisa is his wife, and she told him that the priests had burned his wife for witchcraft and sorcery. Dracula gets angry and decides to take revenge on the humans, and he tells the woman to go away with her family. In the next scene, priests appear in the church burning another witch, and the people applaud and rejoice in this act. Dracula appears from the midst of the fires, and the bishop thinks he is a demon, and shows the cross to keep him away, but they realize that is Dracula, who they thought is a legend, and Dracula tells them that his wife is a scientist and not a witch, but the bishop says that Dracula is nothing but a fantasy and an illusion to justify black magic. Dracula says that he will give them 1 year to repent, and if they do not repent, he will kill everyone in Wallachia City, and then he disappear away. Dracula feels angry in his castle, then someone comes to him and advises him to kill only those who burned his wife, because if he launches the night army there will be no way to go back, and he will kill thousands of innocent lives. Dracula did not convinced by his words, and the person says that he will not allow him to kill everyone, and then Dracula attacks him. A year later, in the town Targovist in the city of Wallachia, the archbishop appears in the great church, and claims victory over Dracula, but the sky begins to rain blood, and then Dracula appears in the sky, and he knows that they did not repent, and he releases the winged demons known as the Night Army, and they begin to kill the inhabitants of the city. In the next scene, Trevor Belmont appears and he is a monster hunter and the last descendant of the Belmont family, who were wrongfully exiled and excommunicated. One of the residents called Peter enters the bar and tells them what happened in the town Targovist. Those in the bar hate the townspeople and the church, because they have money and in return they work like slaves. They note that there is a logo on the chest of Trevor, and this logo indicates that he is from the Belmont family, who are famous for black magic and who deal with monsters. Someone in the bar hits Trevor and then kicks him. Trevor confesses his identity to them. Then the people in the bar attack him, but he confronts them. In the fight they beat him, but he eventually gets over them, and then he leaves. In the next scene, Trevor arrives near the town of Grest, hears the sounds of the monsters and sees the corpses, and then he enters the town by a stream, and as he walks into the town he finds a great many corpses, then reaches a butcher and he buys a piece of meat from her. He hears from a vendor an ancient story known as the Sleeping Warrior, which tells of a hero who has fallen into a deep slumber under the catacombs for hundreds of years, waiting for his rescue to be called to wake up again, and then he tells him that Dracula's monsters come at night, and the bishop's ones do not come to him in the morning. Trevor sees one of a servant of the church trying to kill an old man, and he stops him and cuts off his finger. The other servant attacks him, but Trevor confronts him and pulls out his eye. He goes with the man to his residence. The preachers tell him that the bishops have lied to the people, so that they do not take responsibility for what happened, and he tells him the story of Dracula that happened indeed. The preacher tells him that he has sent his grandson to find the sleeping warrior and wake him, but he has not returned yet, and they cannot leave the town before his return or bury his body. Trevor offers them to bring the body of their grandson, but in return they have to leave the town, and the preacher agrees to this offer, and then Trevor goes. Trevor enters a tomb, but the ground collapses him and he falls to underground. Then he sees a group of statues. In this time a giant monster appears and attacks him. Trevor tries to escape from him, but the monster catches Trevor and throws him to the ground. Then Trevor throws his sword towards the monster and stabs him in the chest, but the monster did not affect it, and then Trevor uses his skills to whip and attacks the monster. This caused his sword to pierce the skull of the monster. After killing the monster, the statues turn and appear to be real people. He finds the grandson of the preacher, but it turns out that he is a girl who is dressed like men, called Cypher Belnades, and he explains to her what happened and introduces her about himself. Then they return to the preachers and return Cypher to her grandfather. Then Trevor tells them that the story of the sleeping warrior is a trap invented by the bishop. Then he leaves. As he walks, he is surrounded by a group of bishops and they ask him to attend the church, and he goes with them. Trevor meets with Bishop, and Trevor accuses him of killing the preachers, and from their conversation Trevor knows everything about the bishop, and the bishop tells him that he intends to kill all the preachers, so that the town becomes safe and there are no infidels who are deprived of the church, and thus he can save the town, and the bishop will allow Trevor to leave safely today, or else he will be killed with the preachers. Trevor returns to the preachers and tells them what happened and that the bishop wants to kill them, but they refuse to go and choose to fight, but Trevor insists that they need go. At the night, several people gather and break the door of the preacher's house, but they only find Trevor, and it turns out that the preachers are hiding in the basement. One of the people asks Trevor about their place, but he refuses to answer, and introduces himself that his family was the one who protected the city from monsters. They decide to fight him, but he attacks them and demolishes the house above their heads, and then runs and escapes from them. He is surrounded by church servants, but he uses one of them as a shield to block the arrows, then he kills them all, and he continues to escape, but it is midnight and Dracula's monsters begin to attack. The monsters enter the church, and the bishop is surprised that they have entered the house of God, and he says that it is impossible for them to enter the house of God because it's protected, but they answer him that his God does not exist, and one of the monsters kills the bishop. Returning to Trevor as he continues to escape, he is surrounded by people, but then is protected by fire through Cypher, and it turns out that she is using magic but not for evil, and she opens a way for Trevor to escape from them. Trevor tells everyone what the priests and bishop have done, as they lied to the residents, and all the preachers are the ones who help the residents. Then the residents stab the priest. The monsters continue to attack the city, and Trevor orders everyone with a weapon to fight on his side against these monsters, and orders a peaceful priest to collect water and make it holy to be sprayed by the monsters. Then he orders Cypher to surround them by using her ice-creating power, and finally he orders people to bring salt and put it on their swords. Cypher begins creating ice, and Trevor sprinkles them with holy water, then Cypher closes the way back, then swordsmen kill them, and it becomes clear that the salt kills monsters, and Trevor also uses his whip, and it turns out that it is intended to kill demons and vampires. Then a battle takes place between Trevor and Cypher with a big monster, and Cypher holds him by the ice, and eventually Trevor kills him with his whip, and then they fall underground. They find themselves in a big machine, but it crashes and falls. Then they walk down a corridor and find a coffin. Trevor presses his foot on a place that leads to the opening of the coffin, and inside it appears a person named Alucard, the sleeping warrior who will kill Dracula, and they tell him what Dracula did. Trevor claims that Alucard is a vampire, and decides to kill him. And the battle between them begins, but Alucard turns out to have high fighting skills, and then Trevor pulls out his sword and begins a duel with him, and through the duel Alucard appears to have a superhuman speed. Trevor causes great damage to Alucard's chest, but that leads he cuts his sword, and Trevor falls to the ground. Alucard thinks he has defeated Trevor, but it turns out that Trevor stabbed him with his dagger, and Cypher appears behind him and orders him to stop. Then Alucard introduces himself as Dracula's son, and that he has been sleeping for a whole year to heal from the wound inflicted on him by his father, when he tried to prevent him from shedding monsters on the city, and he decided to save the city as his mother wanted. And the first season ends here. Thank you for watching. If you have an anime series or movie that you want me to make a video about it, please tell me in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel.